Hello students, welcome back. In this video, we're going to add a brand new system to our game, a resource system, something that our player can manage, control, and use accordingly to help them out. This resource system will be fuel. They can use fuel to accelerate and boost their thrusters to move in a given direction, out of harm's way from a given asteroid. However, if they use too much fuel, they might find themselves in a dangerous situation where they cannot avoid an oncoming collision with an asteroid. They're going to be dead. And if they use too much fuel, they'll have no ability to accelerate at all, and they will just drift away off the screen where we have one of our lose conditions. So let's head to the computer screen and create our resource system right now. All right, so I have lesson 4's starter file open here in vscode.dev. I'm going to minimize the screen, and I'm going to open up that file directly in the browser so we can see what we have to work with. All right, so here is our starter file. We got our start overlay. I hit enter. I can orient my thrusters, and it looks like I can fire some fuel to thrust anywhere on the screen. Right now, it looks like I have unlimited acceleration, right? There's no fuel. There's no fuel system at all here because I am just holding the space key and I'm still controlling everything. Of course, I go off screen, should be game over, and it is. So what we want to do is add this resource system, this thing that the player now has to manage. And this adds a layer of complexity in our gameplay. When do we use our fuel? We can't use it all the time because we will eventually run out, and we need to save it for the best opportunity to use it. So mission number 1 for our fuel system says we need to add the fuel constants to the game. So anytime we try to add a brand new system here, one of the things we can do first is add our constants. Our constants will be in the student edit zone, those things that we can tweak and adjust to change the gameplay, how our game looks, how our game feels. And our fuel system is no different. So if we look here, we've got 2 constants that we can change for our fuel system. The maximum amount of fuel that our probe can have, which is currently set to 0, well, that's just a mean number. And then our fuel cost per frame. How much fuel will we use every single frame that our fuel system is accelerating our probe? So for my max fuel, I will set that to, I don't know, I always like to just do 100 as my maximum number. It's a nice number here. And then how much is it going to cost per frame? Well, for every single frame, I did it out. I'm going to do roughly 0.083. Now, how did I get that number? Well, if we look here, if I do 0.083, and I'll do 33333 as if it's like a repeating decimal. Wow, I can put a lot of 3s there. That's actually really cool. If we're running at 60 frames per second, I'm going to lose that much fuel every single frame. And if I'm running 60 frames in a second, then you can see I'm going to be losing roughly 4.999999999999998 fuel every single second. So roughly like 5, right? So if I have 100 and I run my boosters or my thrusters for 1 second, I would drop down to 95. And then another second, 90. So that's how we're going to do that here. All right, so that kind of looks pretty good for our system constants. If you think that's too fast or too slow, you just got to adjust that number. If you want to give yourself more fuel, you just have to adjust that number. That's the beauty of these constants here that allow us to tweak gameplay. But I don't think our fuel system is yet in place, so those are our constants. Let's also go look at what we have for our gameplay variables, because we're implementing a new system. We probably got to have a variable to interact with that system, and we do right here, and it is the variable fuel. So our max fuel is 100, right? That's a constant. That's not going to change. But the amount of fuel our probe has will change over the course of our game. So we declare it here with let. And right now when we declare this variable, we're setting it to a value of 0. The game hasn't really started yet, so there's no need for our probe to have any fuel. So we just set it to 0. And so now let's take a look at mission number 2. Mission 2, we'll look at the tag. And this puts us in mission 2. It's all about resetting that fuel variable, because we find ourselves in reset game to defaults. Remember, reset game to defaults is called inside of our setup function, that default P5 function that gets run automatically every time we start our game. So when we start our game, we want to now set that fuel variable. We reposition our player in reset game to defaults. We build our star background in reset game to defaults. And now we have to interact with our fuel system. Right right now, our poor little probe, when we reset, is getting its fuel set to 0. Not what we want. We want to be nice. We want to give it the maximum amount of fuel available to it, which is in one of our system variables here, max fuel. If I hover over it, we can see it's 100. So right now, when I refresh the game, our little probe has got a full tank of fuel. All right, which means we should be able to zoom around until we eventually run out. But I don't think we're going to run out at all because that system is not yet in place. All we've done is defined the data for the fuel system. We have not yet updated or drawn the data for the fuel system. So I'm just still having this nice slippery movement all over our star field. So let's go see what mission 3 has us working on. Mission 3 is asking us to, where does it find us? Ooh, we are inside of a draw function, draw a fuel bar. So it looks like mission 5, 3, and 4, oh, they're all near each other here in this draw fuel bar function. Okay, so where is draw fuel bar being called? Okay, so it's being called right up above inside of draw HUD. So we're going to put this in, my poor little guys just drifting. Okay, so we're going to put this inside of our HUD. I think we're probably going to put like a fuel bar over here that sort of drains as we use more and more and more fuel. That is our goal. So let's see how we're going to do this. So we draw our HUD, and remember, draw HUD is happening because we're calling draw scene, where we draw our background, our player, our HUD, and then our overlays if those conditions are true. And draw scene is happening. Why? Because it's in our default P5 game function called draw. If our current game mode is play, we update everything, and then no matter what we do, we always draw our scene. All right, so with that review, let's draw our background bar. It says bar background. Draw the fuel background bar. Create a visible area for the fuel meter. Okay, so let's see. Well, what do we got up here? We got some variables to work with in this function. Bar width is 180. Bar height is 14. Bar X is like the width of the canvas. So bar X is the width of the canvas, and then it's subtracting the bar's width, and then we're subtracting 15 again, probably to give it like a little bit of padding. And then bar Y is 18. So bar Y is probably 18 pixels down. So we're going to put our bar over here, and there's going to be a little bit of space on the edge. So I think these are just constants here to help us position the bar. The bar's width, the height, and then the X and Y coordinate of the top left corner of the bar. So I guess the first thing we got to ask ourselves, if we're going to draw, I guess what are we going to use? We're going to use a rectangle for our bar, okay? So we gotta get a color for our bar. So what color do we want to use? Well, I'm gonna click over here, and we're gonna go to our color palettes. So here's our color palettes. Zoop. Let's see what we got to work with. Okay, so we got fuel bar BG color and fuel bar fill color. And look at these. They're two different color definitions. We have a RGB alpha string. So if you look here, we got 255 in the red, 255 in the green, 255 in the blue. Give me all your red, all your green, all your blue. That makes white, but it's very transparent, right? Its alpha channel is 0.2, which means we're going to be able to see a lot behind it. And then, so that's going to be like our background. And then as we get fuel, we'll fill it in with the fuel bar fill color, which is FFB347. So all the red, a good amount of green, and a little bit of blue. All right, so let's use those colors here in these upcoming missions. So we'll first put some paint in our paint bucket for our bar background. So we'll say fill, and I'm going to put in fuel underscore bar BG color. Now my paint bucket is loaded. And so now I want to draw a rectangle. So I'll call the rect function. This takes 4 required pieces of information. It takes the X coordinate of the top left point and the Y coordinate of the top left point. I can put it anywhere, but I'm going to use these variables that were defined for me in the function, bar X and bar Y. All right, so let's pass those in, bar X and bar Y. And then it's going to take the width of the bar and the height of the bar. Hey, look at this. I got those variables right here, bar width and bar height. So I'm going to just throw those in. Bar width, tab for autocomplete. Bar height, tab for autocomplete. I adore autocomplete. Hey, we just drew a rectangle. Let's see that rectangle. Hey, that looks like a bar. Pretty good. All right, so that's, guess I'm happy with that. Although it looks pretty square. I don't think I like these square edges. So what I'm going to do is I would like to round the edges so it looks more like a bar and less like a rectangle. And so in the rect function, after those 4 required pieces of information, I can pass another optional piece of information that describes curving the edges. So I'm going to put 6 in here, and that's going to round the edges of my bar nicely. So the bigger the number, the more rounding you're going to get. And so now that looks like a little bit more like a HUD bar or a heads-up display bar for me. So that looks really good. In fact, this is what I want the bar to look like when I'm out of fuel. Okay, this is the empty fuel status. But I'm not out of fuel. I have lots of fuel. So what I'd like to do is draw another more colorful bar that sits on top of it. When I have 100% fuel, it'll be drawn all the way over here. If I have 50% fuel, it'll be drawn here. If I have 25% fuel, it'll be drawn here. This will change dynamically. So this first bar, its size is always the same. The second bar with its size will change. It will scale depending on how much fuel I have. All right, so I'm going to put a new paint in my paint bucket because I have a new color for this. It is fuel bar fill color. Paint bucket is loaded. And so now I'm going to draw a rect. Well, let's first just start by, I don't know, let's just draw the exact same rectangle that we did before. So bar X, capital X, bar Y with a capital Y. Its width will be bar width, and its height will be bar height. And let's do a rounding of 6. Let's see what that does for us. Hey, look at that. That's what it's going to look like when we have a full amount of fuel. All right, so we saw the empty case. We saw the full case. Now the question is, how do we change it so like it's only like half of the fuel? Imagine if I was like half of the fuel. Okay, well then I have to adjust the width of this bar. So I want to get half of it. Now there's a couple of ways we could do that. I could divide by 2, and that should do it. So if I divide by 2, it gets cut in half, so that works. Okay, but dividing by 2 is the same as multiplying by a decimal, 0.5. All right, so let's see. Okay, so I still get that. But multiplying by a decimal is also the same as multiplying by a fraction that is equivalent to 0.5. So what about like, I don't know, 5 over 10? Well, that fraction, 5 over 10, also gives me a half. And this is actually really nice because now as I change the numerator, watch what happens to the width of my bar. So if I change the numerator to 2 out of 10, whoa, the width of that bar drops down to be about 20% or 0.2. If I make it bigger, if I make it like 9 out of 10, whoa, it's like almost all the way there. And if I make it the maximum number, 10 out of 10, what am I going to get? I'm going to get the whole bar. So what I need here is I need some number in the numerator that will change throughout the scope of my game, and some number in the denominator that represents the maximum amount that I can have. Well, if we think about our variables, we're talking fuel here. This bar represents fuel. The maximum amount I have for the denominator will be max fuel. And the numerator, this is the thing that I want to change, right? I want it to decrease as I use more and more and more and more. Well, that is my gameplay variable, fuel. So taking our bar width and multiplying by this ratio, we now have a way to dynamically adjust our bar. Right now, it's completely full. Why is that? Well, max fuel is 100, and our fuel variable, if I scroll all the way up to our reset game to defaults function, what did we set it to? Well, we set it to max fuel. All right, so max fuel is 100. Let's see what happens if I set it to like, I don't know, 67. So now the fuel variable has changed, so our bar's width should change as well, and it does. It drops all the way down here. So that system is working really nice. Let's change that back to max fuel, and let's go see what Mission 5 has us do. Mission 5 is asking us to put a HUD label, so display a fuel label in the HUD. So we got to show some text indicating the resource that is being tracked, because right now, if you just look at that bar, you'd go, hey, that's a great looking bar. I wonder what it means. We have no idea. So we should put a label here of text to help indicate to the player what this visual feedback represents. And so this is going to find us in Mission 5. It's still in the draw bar function, but we want to put a label here. So now we're talking text. Okay, so if we're talking text, we got to put a new paint in our paint bucket. Fill. And I'm going to put in text color. It's that nice white color that we've been using. Anytime we put text, we should align our text. So I'm going to do text align. And if you look, this is going to be aligned. I'm going to align it to the right. All right, so I'm going to align it to the right because I'm starting over here on the right. When I was working over here, I aligned everything to the left. Now I'm going to align everything to the right. So I'm going to do right align and the horizontal and center align in the vertical. And I'll set my text size. Text size is 14. I'll do 14. And then I'm going to create my text. And what do I want to say? I'm going to say fuel. And so now I got to figure out where I want this text to go. So we're right aligned, so that means I'm positioning right here at the end of the L this time. So if we think about it, this is the whole width of the canvas. And so I have the bar's X position, right? Don't I have that defined? Yeah, I got bar X, which is the width minus the bar width minus 15. So the bar's X position is the width minus, there's that minus 15, and then there's the minus the bar's width. So what I want to do is take the right end of my text, like this L right here, and go from the bar's X position and put a little bit extra space in here for padding. So I don't know, I'll maybe like take bar X and subtract a little bit. So the X position will be bar X minus, I'll do 8. All right, minus 8 pixels. And I'm going to use, let's see, for the vertical position, I'm basically going to find the bar Y, which is the center of the bar, and I'm going to add the height divided by 2. So I'm going to get the bar's Y position, which is this top left corner, right? So the XY position is the top left corner, and I'm going to center it in the bar. So I'm going to take the bar's height and divide it by 2, which gives me the midpoint. All right, so let's see. So I'm going to do bar Y, and then I'm going to add to it the bar's height divided by 2, which is going to give me my midpoint. And that should hopefully make my label appear right across here in the X direction, spaced out, and then centered dead smack in the middle of the bar. Let's see. Fuel. Oh, I think that looks really good. All right, so now we have that bar system in place. So we got some visual feedback. Of course, the visual feedback, we're drawing the fuel system, but we are not yet updating the fuel system. So we have done 2 out of the 3 of the big levels of game development. We have defined our variables. We have drawn our variables, but we have not yet updated the variables. And so now let's see what we can do here in mission number 6. Mission number 6 asks us to reduce fuel while we are thrusting. Okay, so that makes sense, right? Anytime we are holding the space bar, fuel has got to go down. So if we look here, this puts us in our update thrusters function, which we call every frame. And we're asking a question. We're saying, okay, if our key is down, if the thrust key is down, which is the space bar, we update our velocity based on our acceleration and the direction of our thrusters, which we've looked at that mission before. But now, since we are applying our thrust, we have to reduce our fuel. So I'm going to target that fuel variable that we have been using to represent how much fuel is in the probe, and I'm going to decrease it by some amount. I don't know, 10, 5. I wonder what it should be. Well, if you remember, our system has a constant here called fuel cost per frame. If I go down to it and hit tab to autocomplete, every single frame of my game, I am subtracting 0.083 units of fuel from our max fuel of 100. With that in place, we now will reduce our fuel. I should dynamically see that bar decreasing every time I hold the space bar. So let's check it out. Hey, my fuel system is dropping. That's pretty good. Whoa, I better not go off the screen. My fuel system is slowly... Oh, can I survive? All right, good. I found my way back. I found my way back. That's pretty good. Hey, look at this. I can just like spin and this. Whoa. Let's see. So what's going to happen if I get to 0? Pretty good, pretty good. All right. Oh, this is not good. This is not good at all. We are just going beyond 0. We are just continuing in the negative direction. Like, I don't even know what my fuel is right now. It's probably like negative 60 maybe. We do not want negative fuel. So that is bad behavior, okay? So we somehow have to limit our fuel to stop at 0. We also want to make sure that our fuel doesn't go above our maximum fuel, because maybe we'll add like some system that allows us to get some fuel back. We basically have to keep our fuel value between 0 and max fuel. We need to constrain it within those limits. And this is called clamping. We are going to now look at mission number 7, which asks us to clamp fuel within our valid limits. So we got to keep the fuel between 0 and our maximum value. And there's a really nice function that helps us clamp a value, and that is called the constrain function. To constrain something means to keep it within a lower and an upper limit. And so we're going to take our fuel variable and we are going to set it equal to the constrain function. Now, the constrain function takes 3 pieces of information. It first takes the value that you want to constrain. I want to constrain the variable fuel. Awesome. Next, it takes the lower bound. So what is the smallest possible value this variable can have? It is 0. So if it were, let's say, tried to go to like -5, the constrain function would say, no, that's not happening. We're just going to set you to 0. And what is the maximum value we want this variable to have? Well, that is our variable max fuel. So if we tried to go above 100, let's say we tried to get to 105, the constraint function would say, not on my watch, we're going to set you back to 100. All right, so with that in place, I now should not be able to go to 0 fuel. Let's just check it out. Or go below 0 fuel. So I'm going to run this, zooming across the field. I probably could up my drain rate just for testing. If you're tired of testing and you want to go quicker, just update your drain from like 0.083 to something a little bit higher. All right, here's where we go. Let's see. All right, so it's not going negative anymore, so that's pretty good. There is just one big problem. I'm clearly out of fuel, but I'm still accelerating. So even though we've capped it, we've clamped it so it can't go below 0, I'm still allowing for thrust to occur even if I am out of fuel. And that's a game-breaking bug, right? We do not want that to happen. So let's look at what mission number 8 has us do. Mission number 8 says prevent thrust when the fuel is empty. All right, so let's see where this brings us. So we're back in update thrusters, and it says prevent thrust when the fuel is empty. Only allow thrust while fuel is above 0. Okay, so right now we're asking a question, right? And the question says, is the space bar down? Okay, but it's now saying only allow thrust if the fuel is above 0. I guess we could just ask a different question in here. We could say, is the fuel variable greater than 0? All right, so let's just see if what would happen if we do that, right? So now our question is, if fuel is greater than 0, so if that question is yes, then we're going to apply our acceleration. We're going to eat some fuel costs, and then we're going to clamp our fuel. Let's see what happens. If I refresh the page and I hit enter, guys, I am not pressing the space bar right now, and I am just I'm thrusting all on its own. We're just accelerating right now all on our own, and this is not ideal because I want to be able to choose when I accelerate. So we broke something here. This is not good. Of course, right now I can't accelerate anymore. So I guess it's sort of working. I ran out of fuel. I was no longer accelerating. But we got rid of a very important question. The very important question was, is the user actually pressing the space key, right? We want 2 things to be true in this question. We want the user to be pressing the space key and our fuel to be greater than 0. If both of those things are true, then we can accelerate. So we actually have to ask not 1, but 2 questions here. The first question we'll ask is key is down. And what key are we looking for? It is our key thrust constant variable. Number 32, our space key. And we want to ask a second question. So we've already seen or as 2 vertical bars. So now we have and is 2 and signs found above the 7 key. So shift and then that 7 key. Those are called ampersands. So 2 of those. And now we can ask our second question. Fuel greater than 0. So now our question has 2 parts, and both of those have to be true. Is the user pressing the space key? And is our fuel variable greater than 0? If the answer is to yes or true, now we accelerate. Now we consume our fuel, and now we clamp our fuel. And with that, I think our fuel system is complete and fully operational. Let's test it. So now I'm not accelerating unless I press the space key. I press the space key. I use some fuel. I drift. I am slowing down due to the drag that we have, but not enough. So I got to use a little bit more fuel to accelerate in the opposite direction. Okay. This is pretty good. I'm drifting. I better slow myself down, consuming fuel to do that. All right. And I can still, I'm just going to spam my fuel key here. Whoo, look at that. Moving in a circle. All right. And so now I'm going to accelerate in this direction. And let's see. I still got a little bit of fuel, right now I'm out of fuel and I cannot accelerate at all. I'm trying to accelerate and it's not letting me happen. I am going to slowly, oh no, I'm just going to slowly drift off screen. Is the drag going to stop me? There I go. I'm going. I'm out of fuel. I'm drifting forever and ever and ever off into deep space where I eventually will lose the game if I go beyond my threshold for our game. So let's see when this happens. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 1. 1. I was moving so slow. I timed this really badly. Okay, there we go. My probe was finally lost. I had just timed that really, really funny that it worked that way. All right, so our fuel system works exceptionally well. I'm really happy with how this came out. And this adds a whole new layer to our gameplay. Right before it was just, hey, let's fly this probe around space, and this is sort of fun. But now we have this fuel system where we can see if we use too much of it, we're going to run out, and that's going to find us in a very dangerous spot. Right now, the threat is finding ourselves just endlessly drifting off the screen. But the moment we add asteroids, the threat is going to amplify by a factor of 10 or 100. It's going to become much more interesting. So I can't wait to continue building this game with you in our next video. I'll see you then.